Okay, welcome everybody on our Zoom platform and Facebook Live. This is Lance Luke and Martin Pea, part of the Ask the Building Expert series, and we're broadcasting live. And why do we do this? We actually do this to help a lot of people, building owners, managers, property managers, condo board members, attorneys, architects, engineers, homeowners, contractors, developers, whoever's interested in our topic today. And our topic is kind of top of mind because of the recent fires that we've been having. This webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, which is a local company that I own. And that's probably the only commercial you're going to get. Now, let's go right into it. Fire code inspections. Before I get to that, this is National Rose Day. So reminding you that 1 week from now is Valentine's Day. Be sure to participate if you're able to. If you don't want to buy a rose, maybe you want to buy a gold piece of jewelry that's in shape of a rose, 18 karat, 14 karat, whatever. And yeah, we're recording live. So if you have any questions, please direct them to us and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So the topic is fire code inspections. Why is it important? It's important for safety, as you know, and the information I'm going to be provided to you today applies to every single state in the United States. Although we're located in Hawaii, the same codes prevail throughout each and every state. So if you are from California, the fire code is basically the same as the items that are going to be discussing with you today, or New York or whatever. There's some minor tweaks and changes along the way, but for the most part, the majority of the content is exactly the same. Now, the question you may ask is, well, what is the code? What is this all about? Well, there's a city code, a state code, and a national code, and it's kind of all similar. And it's based on the national code that's written by NFPA, which stands for National Fire Protection Association. And so what happens is, in each jurisdiction or each state, the state or city, county adopts the national code or sections of the fire code that's published by the National Fire Protection Association. There's also building code, life safety code, and different codes, which are all similar in nature. Okay, and did you know that the National Fire Protection Association actually writes the NEC? And what is that? That's the National Electrical Code. And why does the National Fire Protection Association get involved in electrical code? Well, because a lot of fires start from electrical devices and extension cords and circuit breakers and those kind of things. So that's why. So if anybody asks you, what is the fire code? This is your answer. Any answer that you give is going to be correct. If you say, well, it's a city code, or it's a state code, or if it's national code, then you're all correct. Okay, so there's no really wrong answer. Now we're going to go right into this, and it's going to be fairly quick and fast, because I want to leave time at the end for questions. And we always want people to be coming up with questions, asking questions about the topic, or if it's off topic, that's okay too. I'll be happy to address them provided we have enough time. So let's talk about fire exits and corridors. Why is this important? It's important because every single commercial building, and when I say commercial, it means non-residential. And let me clarify that. Although a high-rise condominium building or an apartment building is residential because people live there. For the purpose of the building code, it's considered commercial. Okay, so there's a difference. So we're talking about commercial buildings here, or buildings that are not, say, a single family house or a duplex. Okay, so that's the difference. But certain things apply to single family houses as well. But for the most part, I'm going to be talking about commercial buildings. Okay, the qualification of commercial buildings would be high-rise or low-rise apartment buildings, condominium buildings, office buildings, industrial, hospitals, schools, shopping centers, any kind of building basically that has more than 7 stories. Okay. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What are we talking about here? We're talking about fire doors, we're talking about proper signage and proper lighting. So fire doors is marked with words that say fire exit or emergency exit or some kind of denotation to let you know that in case of a fire, that's the door that you're going to use to, get out of the building. If the door doesn't say fire exit, it may say exit, or if you know that it's leading to a stairway, okay, that's considered a fire door to get out of the building. Okay, you might have a single door, you might have a double door. It all depends. Okay, like a movie theater would have these fire exit doors to get out, and proper signage. And the proper signage would be words that say fire exit with an arrow. It could be red, it could be in green. If you go to a lot of buildings, you're going to see these, and they should be lighted. And especially hospitals and hotels. Okay. And then the signage has to be lighted. If the sign isn't lighted, okay, there should be strong lights shining on the sign so you can see it. And then I'll cover this more later on, but the lighting in stairways, okay, should be on. And for emergency, there should be backup batteries too. So in case of a power outage, you have a 40-story building, power outage, and let's say there's a fire in the building. You try to go out the fire door, and all of a sudden you're in the dark because all the lights are out, and you have 40 sets of stairs to go down. Okay, so that's kind of common sense, right? Let's talk about standpipes, extinguishers, fire extinguishers, and fire hoses. Well, what is a standpipe? A standpipe, there's 2 different types of standpipes. Okay, there's what's called a dry standpipe and what's called a wet standpipe. And there's a difference. Okay, sometimes on buildings there's a combination, but there's a monument on the ground level, and for the most part it's at the street level, and it's marked standpipe, and it kind of looks like a hose connection. And the reason why it kind of looks like it's because it is a hose connection. So what happens is, in the event of a fire, the fire department truck shows up and they bring their hoses and they connect their hoses to the standpipe. Okay, if it's a dry standpipe, they would go to the fire hydrant and turn the hydrant on, and the water from that hydrant would either go through the fire truck and then through the standpipe, or it would just go through the standpipe. And that's a dry standpipe because there's no water in it. The only way water gets in is when the firefighters connect water to that pipe and force the water into the pipe. That's a dry standpipe. A wet standpipe is a standing water in that pipe all the time, and the firefighters go up to whatever floor that they need to connect their hose, turn the pipe on, and the water just comes out. So that's the difference. Both of them serve the same purpose, but one does not have water in it and one does. Okay. And the fire extinguishers, you know about that already. They have to be on every floor, and depending on the length of the floor, they may need one or two. And then there also needs to be in parking garages as well. If the garage, doesn't have enough fire sprinklers. And then you have your fire hoses. Okay, so the fire hoses I'm talking about here is not the hoses that are on the fire trucks when they come to a fire. These are fire hoses that are mounted in a glass cabinet in the building. So every floor would have a fire hose, and you've probably seen these, like in case of fire, you break the glass and you access the hose. And that's the hose that you would use to connect to the wet standpipe and turn it on, and water comes out. So when I say you, it may not be you, it may be the firefighting personnel that would do that. Now, let's go into detail about these standpipes. I just talked to you about the difference between a dry and wet standpipe. So if you look at the image on the left, it's these knobs there where you remove the cover, and that's where the fire hose is connected to. There's no water standing in it, okay? And then the other image, you see the hose, the fire hose. And if you look at that knob, it's a shutoff valve with the red handle. So in case of a fire, you turn that valve on, right? Because there's water in the pipe already, and then it'll fill the hose up, and you turn the head of the hose on, and you have water, there instantly. Okay, so that's the difference. Let's talk about fire extinguishers. Oh, by the way, all these components, it has to be tested. So periodic testing is required to get sign off, right? And approval. And you would call a plumbing company or a mechanical company that has a certification to test standpipes. And there has to be a tag that they leave after they test it. And the tag shows the month and year of the testing. That's required. If you don't have any tag, then the fire inspector can actually ask for documentation and even give you a citation. Okay, so not only is the requirement for standpipes to be tested, the requirement is it has to have a tag proving that it was tested and what month and year. Fire extinguishers, there's different types of fire extinguishers, as you know. There's not only one type. There's the usual type, which has water in it. But what happens if there's a grease fire? You're not going to be spraying water in it. That's not going to help. So there's a extinguisher where there's powder in it. There's some extinguisher with foam, some with carbon dioxide. And just be aware that the extinguishers that have powder and foam, the chemicals in the foam and powder may be hazardous to your health. So, but the trade-off is, that's okay if there's hazards in the foam, because we need to put out the fire. And fire extinguishers also need to be tested like once a year and also tagged. Okay. I talked about fire hoses. There's different types of hoses. Most of them on the older buildings, the hoses are white. It looks like white canvas material. I don't know if you've ever been on a water where there's like a sailboat, and they have the sail is normally white looking, and it's like canvas type of material. Similarly, the old hoses were made of that, and it doesn't last forever, as you know, because it's material. And then you got other types of material, which is like rubberized plastic. The fire department uses high grade material for their hoses, and they take special care in folding the hoses up after. And it's pretty neat to see them folding it up to kind of keep making it in a round shape, so when they fold it, it's like this circular thing, and it's pretty heavy. What else do we have to talk about besides fire hoses? Oh, by the way, hoses should be inspected and tested every year and tagged. And fire sprinklers have been top of mind since, if you're from Hawaii, top of mind because of the Marco Polo fire. After the fire, the city council passed an ordinance to require fire sprinklers in all high-rise buildings, no matter when the building was constructed, basically. And then that got kind of changed into, instead of mandating fire sprinklers, you need to do a life safety evaluation. And if you pass, then maybe you don't need to put fire sprinklers. Okay, but out of 300 or so buildings, only less than 10 buildings actually passed, which means that the rest would be required to install fire sprinklers. But the bill is ongoing right now regarding the requirements, so we'll see what happens. So I always recommend the buildings have fire sprinklers. If it doesn't, I recommend that the building install fire sprinklers, but I know that the cost is a big factor too. So with fire sprinklers, it's the same with the other components. You have to test and maintain them, and there has to be certification from the testing company. It could be a plumbing company or a mechanical company that's certified to test fire sprinklers, and then it has to be tagged with the month and the year that the inspection was done. That way the fire inspector can just go to that component and look at the tag. And let's say it's 2023 and the fire inspector's going around the building, and he happens to see your fire sprinkler system, and he looks at the tag and it says February 2019. So that's a red flag, right? That means that there was no inspection done yearly, and the last inspection was 2019. So what can the inspector do? He can tell the building owner or manager, you have to get the inspection done, within 20 days. Okay. He can also just write up a citation right then and there. So it just depends on the situation. Now let's talk about smoke alarms and detectors. Does everybody know what the difference is? Okay, so a lot of times people would say, well, my smoke detector doesn't work, or I got to go to City Mill or Home Depot and buy a smoke detector for my rental unit. Okay? The terminology is actually wrong, and here's the reason why. And this is the common definition used by the National Fire Protection Association and fire departments all over the United States. A smoke alarm is a single unit only that's not connected to any other smoke alarms or any other devices. Okay, so a smoke alarm is a device that you buy for your own house, single family house, or your own condo unit if the building does not have a smoke detector system. Okay, versus a smoke detector. A smoke detector is a device that's in multiple locations that are tied together, and it's basically the common element in condo units in a condo building. So if you're in a high-rise condo building and you have a smoke detector in your unit, okay? If there's a fire in your unit, your apartment unit, and your detector goes off, it's going to set the smoke detectors off in the hallway as well. So it's in series, it's connected together. A single smoke alarm will only go off by itself. It won't trigger any other alarms, okay? But smoke alarm is better than nothing, okay? So that's the big difference, okay? And I know all these smoke alarms are sold, mainly from China, and the packaging says smoke detector on it. I think they're beginning to change it now when they understand, the correct terminology. But basically, that's what we're talking about. Now, do you have to test these? Yes. The requirement for a smoke alarm, guess what? And nobody ever does this. To test a smoke alarm, the requirement is you have to test it every month, every 30 days. And do people do that? No, because once you install it, it may be too high and you don't want to go get a step stool or ladder to check it. The only time you really check it is when you hear the dead battery or low battery warning, which is a series of beeps, and it's so annoying that you got to take it down and change the battery. A lot of times it's a 9-volt battery. In the old days, it was all 9-volt. Today, it's a combination. Some are 9-volt, some are 2, AA batteries, or 3 AAA batteries, or 2 AAA, or whatever. Depends on what the brand is. Okay, but be sure to have active batteries at work. Otherwise, the smoke alarm is just decoration in your house. Let's talk about fire alarm systems. Every building it's supposed to have a fire alarm system, even the older buildings built in the 50s and 60s. Okay. Now, the fire alarm system may be antiquated, but it was a requirement, back in the day. So the newer fire alarm systems are all connected and they talk to each other. They're wired. Every unit, if you have an office building or if you're in a condo building, every office is connected. And so when someone pulls a fire alarm on the floor, the whole building, knows about it, similar to a condo. And there's a annunciator panel. If you look at the image to the left, you see that rectangle box. There's an annunciator panel that has these lights on it, and the lights are designate floors. So in the event of a fire, the fire department comes in, they look at the panel and they see a blinking light on the 7th floor. So they know that someone pulled the fire alarm on the 7th floor. That doesn't mean that there's a fire on the 7th floor. It could be on the 8th floor. Most times it is the same floor. Okay, so along with all the other components I mentioned, you have to test regularly. And what happens if your fire alarm system is old and it doesn't function, or the contractor can't get the necessary parts because it's obsolete and outdated? Then what happens? Okay, you have to upgrade it. So upgrading is required. And now with the requirement of the fire sprinklers, everyone needs to upgrade their fire alarm systems as well. So basically, we took you, through fire code inspection, really fast. And I have 2 case studies that I'm going to talk to you about right now. And you've probably heard of these before. Tragic Honolulu high-rise fires. Everyone knows about the Marco Polo fire that killed 5 people. And recently, I don't know if it was last month or sometime soon, there was another high-rise fire called the Lalipono. One elderly man died in the fire, and two dogs. And I haven't gotten the report yet of what the cause is, but I'm waiting for that. Okay, so I'm using these 2 buildings as basically the case studies for fire code inspections, and making sure everything is done properly. So I'm going to go now, and you probably ask, well, what else do we need to know? Thanks for the information, but can you give us some tips on like how to prepare for a fire code inspection? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Okay, so the conclusion from the building expert is I'm going to be talking to you about preparing for a fire code inspection. Okay, so here's the list of things that you need to be aware of. Okay, and it doesn't matter what kind of building you manage or you live in or work in, office building, shopping center, condo building, apartment building, any kind of building, you still need to have a fire code inspection. Okay, so let's go down the list here. You must provide access to hallways, storage rooms, and locked spaces, okay, for the fire inspector. So if a fire inspection is scheduled, these are the things that you need to do. Provide access to areas. You cannot have any locked rooms where the inspector can't get to. Okay? Otherwise, he could decide to fail you on the inspection because he couldn't look into a room. And doesn't matter if it's a closet, restroom or whatever. It has to all be open. And then what happens if the fire inspector flags something that's a violation? Do you have 6 months to correct it? No, according to the building code, fire code, you have time to correct it. And what's that time? The time is immediately. So the fire code states that any kind of violation noted by the inspector has to be corrected immediately, not next month, 6 months from now, or when you feel like it, or when you have the money, or when you get around to do it. No, it has to be corrected immediately. And within 2 weeks, he can come back, and if it's not corrected, he can issue a citation. Okay, now, what other components that are going to be inspected by this fire inspector? Ceiling panels. If you have ceilings that have removable panels, he might want you to remove a panel so you can go poke up into the space there. And what is he looking for? He's looking for electrical wiring that's illegal. He may be looking for penetrations in the wall or ceiling with no fire stopping. He might be looking at those kind of things. Also, any kind of electrical appliances, he's looking at the cords. Okay, so let's say you have a rec room, or you have a party room, and a lot of times party rooms you have a refrigerator. Sometimes there's a refrigerator and freezer, and what he's looking for is the cords. Okay, have to be plugged directly into the outlet. It cannot be into the wall outlet. It cannot be plugged into a power strip, and it cannot be hooked up to an extension cord, because where the refrigerator is 20 feet away from the outlet, so therefore we need an extension cord. No, that's a big no-no. So no extension cords are to be used, and no power strips are to be used for appliances. Okay, extension cords are, guess what? They're only temporary use only. So in a building, if you have extension cords that are have been there for years, that's a no-no, because it's temporary use only. Temporary use is if you have a power saw or a power drill, and the cord is only so long, right? It's very short, so you got to hook up an extension cord to it. That's the only proper use for an extension cord. Not plug. You have lighting or appliances or whatever plugged into an extension cord. That's a big no-no. And of course, Christmas trees, you can use an extension cord. It's because it's only temporary. After Christmas, you take down the tree and there's no extension cord hazard anymore. The other thing is power strips. How are you using power strips? Have you heard of the term piggybacking? Okay, piggybacking is if you connect two or more power strips together using either power strips or extension cords. I commonly see that in older buildings because they do not have enough electrical outlets, right? So they go, well, instead of paying an electrician to add more outlets and circuits, we're just going to use that one outlet, and we're going to use two power strips and three extension cords. Is that a fire hazard? Yes, it is. Is that conforming to the fire code? No, it's not. So that's going to be flagged. Inspector would look for exit signage, like I mentioned, and the signage must be illuminated and visible with backup batteries, and it has to be functional. If you have old batteries that don't work, then of course, that's not going to help you. Fire exits and corridors. Fire doors have to be working. They have to be a proper fire door. You can't leave them propped open, and no storage in the stairwells. Okay, you cannot have storage boxes and assorted crap on your landing or even on the stairs. I've seen buildings where they don't have enough storage space, so they decide to use, oh, well, this stairway landing is big. Let's, store some boxes here. I've seen Christmas lights. I've seen cans of paint, ladders, all kind of things. But did you know that the fire exit, the stairway has to be clear at all times, the steps and the landings? You can't have anything blocking, because what happens if there's a fire and there's 100 people trying to get out? They're not going to be tripping over ladders and pieces of drywall and cans of paint and all those kind of things. Also, fire extinguishers, like I mentioned, you got to service yearly. It has to have a service tag. Your fixed fire protection devices, such as dry standpipes, wet standpipes, there's a 5-year flow test required, and it needs to be tagged with the month and the year. Fire sprinklers, there's a yearly flow test, not every 5 years. Every year, fire sprinklers have to be tested and also tagged. Storage and flammable combustible liquids, okay, when the quantities exceeds 10 gallons, the liquids must be stored in a special storage cabinet. Okay, you heard of these fire resistant safes that you can buy for your own house? So, you put important documents, and then if and when there's a fire, the safe doesn't burn and your documents are protected. It's similar to that. So I've seen closets where they store, 20 gallons of paint, 5 gallons of gasoline for their weed eater and lawnmower and all that, and it's just a wooden closet, right? Is that good? No, those are all combustible liquids and flammable materials. Okay, if you are a restaurant, okay, your commercial cooking equipment has to have automatic fire extinguishers, and I'm talking about your grills, your stoves. The hood normally has a fire sprinkler head, so in case of a fire, the head would go off and water would put out the whatever liquid would put out the fire. Also, your fire alarm system has to be tested, and the testing is by a fire alarm company, and the fire department has to be present during the test to sign off. And this is a new construction. Okay, on an older building, you could have the fire alarm company do the test and sign off, and it depends. If you got cited for a violation because of your fire alarm system, the fire alarm company has to call the fire department to be there while you're doing the testing, and they can sign off and remove the violation. So in a nutshell, that's basically the presentation on fire code inspections. Martin and I have given numerous webinars on building and construction issues. We have a website that you can go to watch the on-demand webinars, and almost every topic that you can think of, we've given a webinar for: roofing, concrete spalling, plumbing, electrical, hurricane ties. There's a whole bunch. Okay, if you want me to cover a topic, shoot us an email, then we'll consider it. put it on our list. Maybe we'll do a pop-up topic for you. And then what's coming up? I have a list here. I'm going to briefly go through it real fast of upcoming webinars that we have scheduled throughout the rest of the year. Fire code inspections, that's the one today. The next one is ancient buildings in Italy. Why? Because I went there in November of last year. I took a bunch of pictures. I'll be talking about different buildings in Italy, including Pompeii. I had fun doing that. All these, the next titles are, why is my electric bill so high? DPP, why is my building permit taking so long? Emergency generators. Next, climate change and global warming, real or fake news. Next webinar, condo board errors. Then condo lawsuits, there's trouble in paradise. Then next, the 7 stages of construction, 14 types of building structure components. Next, Aloha Stadium from rust to dust. Then the real estate development process. Then water damage, flood remediation. And then another topic is construction defect litigation cases. I'll be talking to you about actual cases that I worked on. The next is renovation is no vacation. Why do I say that? Because any renovation project, you can't be sitting around, relaxing. It's very stressful and a lot of details to work with, not only the owner or the manager, but for the contractor as well. Then I have, this is not pertaining really to building and construction, but this is real estate seller disclosure, getting to talk about real estate. Next, International Residential Code, cliff dwelling construction. Here's a couple big heavy duty topics: the rail, the big, bad, and the ugly. And then after that, Red Hill, the big Navy blunder. And then last, why hire a construction manager? So those are the webinars that are scheduled on the list so far. And let's see what else we have. Like I mentioned, visit our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site, and you can go and watch the on-demand webinars. There's a whole bunch. Just select the ones you want. Watch it on your own time. And we also have free publications. I've written a couple of books. You can download it for free. One on monster houses, and then another, how safe is your building? And by the way, here's a tip. Those books are on sale at Amazon, but if you go to our website publications, you can download the book for free. Okay, so don't tell too many people. You got questions, I got answers. So if you need to get a hold of me, my phone number is 808-422-2132. If you don't use 808, you're going to get a dead signal. Email lanceluke@hawaiibuildingexpert.com. So that's basically what we have for today. And askbuildingexpert.now.site. Remember, that's like a valuable website that has loads of information. There's so much stuff there. We're having a little problem trying to maintaining it, because every week we're adding more things to it. Every time we finish a webinar, we upload our video recording, so you can watch it. So I'd like to bring Martin Pea back on. He's the IT guy in the back end. He'll be checking the Q&A on our Zoom and hopefully on Facebook to see if we have any questions that came up. And by the way, thank you everybody for attending. I know there's people watching that are from different states. I know people from Hawaii, like the two Christines. Thank you for tuning in. And I don't want to go down the list of names. I'm going to take this time to answer any questions. So Martin, let's bring you back on and see if any questions came up.
Yes, Lance, I'm back on. And yeah, let's hit the questions. Great tips you shared, yeah. First one we've gotten is, how often does the fire alarm system need to be tested?
Okay, so the answer is every year there's a testing requirement, but if there's a defect in the fire alarm system, so let's say the building had a test done, February this month, okay? The next time you need to test would be in February next year. But let's say there's a glitch, something happened, a pull station fell off the wall, or a bell fell off, or the annunciator is blinking a light, or some malfunction, or some problem. Okay, that's when you need to have it fixed and tested again. Okay, so just because the code requires yearly testing, if you have a malfunction, you have to test it again. So the answer is every year unless there's a problem. And then I know an old building that was built in the late 50s that had testing done 4 times because there was always a malfunction. And one of the times they tested, and every floor there's a bell, and they pulled the test to have the bells go off, and there was about 3 or 4 floors that the bells never rang at all and no one could hear it. So in that case, yeah, you need to test more than once a year.
Okay, thank you on that one. The next question that's come in is, what are your thoughts on installing fire sprinklers in the hallways? Only, rather than in individual condo units. It would
Okay,
be a lot cheaper, yeah.
what was that?
No, and their closing comment was it would be a lot cheaper, I guess, related to all these installs required.
Oh, okay. So in a high-rise building, if you have a full fire sprinkler install, you're including the common areas of the building, which is your hallways and other common areas, your lobby, whatnot, and every single unit. So if you have a building that has 250 units, there's fire sprinklers on every 250 units, and there's not one fire sprinkler that goes into one unit. One unit, if it's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom unit, you may have 10 or 20 fire sprinklers in that one condo unit, because every space has to have a sprinkler. Okay, so the cost in full fire sprinkler building is a lot. So when I was on the committee after the Marco Polo fire, I proposed that in lieu of having every building totally fire sprinklered, why don't we just sprinkler the common areas, because there was a cost factor, and then as each unit got sold, there would be a requirement for that unit to install fire sprinkler in the condo unit itself. And that didn't go well because the building associations and all that didn't have money, so it was all or nothing. They said, no, we don't even want to install any fire sprinklers at all, let alone just in the common area. So in answer to the question, I think buildings should have full fire sprinklers in every single unit, but if I had to choose, I would say the common area hallways are better than nothing. So, we'll see what's going to happen.
Okay, Lance, thank you.
Sure.
We get a question from one of our Facebook friends here, and it's asking, as a landlord in Hawaii, is a townhouse, let me look at this again. As a landlord in Hawaii, a townhouse, am I required to have functioning smoke detectors in the unit? This looks like a townhouse landlord.
Okay, let me make this very clear. It doesn't matter if you're a landlord, an owner, or a property manager. The law says, and it doesn't matter if if it's a townhouse, a condo unit, a single family house, or whatever, duplex, a studio, any of those housing types, it doesn't matter. The law requires that there'll be a smoke alarm, period. Okay, so it doesn't say if you're a landlord or a tenant or whoever it is. The law is very clear that those devices be installed, and it's a state requirement. And further, if you're a landlord, okay, that you're required to make sure that those devices are there. So it's on you. You can actually be fined because it's already part of the landlord tenant code that you're required. But you may ask the tenant to test and replace the battery. I think I write that in my contracts, right? So, for protection, but that's a good question.
Yeah, very good question. Okay, another one that's come in here is it true that the insurance rates are going sky high, which basically forces condo owners to opt in on installing fire sprinklers?
The answer is yes. If you talk to these insurance companies that insure commercial buildings such as office buildings and condos, but mainly with respect to condo buildings, this whole fire sprinkler issue is becoming a big mess. And the reason why is that the insurance companies are now telling these condo boards and property managers that if you don't put fire sprinklers, when it comes time for renewal, we're not going to renew your insurance. And they're like, oh, well, the city is not requiring us to install fire sprinklers. And the insurance company says, well, we have nothing to do with what the city requires. This is our insurance company requirement. So it may come to, and more insurance companies are not insuring buildings without fire sprinklers because of the risk factor. So it's getting harder and harder to get insurance, right? So it might be a situation where if the city and county doesn't require it, your building may be forced to install fire sprinklers just because you need to get the insurance. So time will tell, but I would urge the board or property management company to talk to insurance companies and find out what's going on, and just to get a heads up, because I know some buildings they're either self-insured or their deductible is $150,000 because they needed to get insurance. So it's not getting any better, folks. It's just going to get worse over time.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Our next question is a bit of a long one, so let me see if I can get through this. It says, my older condo building has unit entry doors with louvers in them, and the people leave their doors open for cross ventilation. The property manager said that there are new rules that require the doors to be solid and left closed. When did these new rules take effect? And was it because of the Marco Polo fire?
No, it wasn't because of the Marco Polo fire, but the Marco Polo fire actually brought attention to the fire door issue. Now, going back in time, Martin is older than me. Okay, so the building code that required fire doors was before Martin was born, maybe. Okay, and this is something interesting. When I started doing inspections in the 80s, in 1980, the code was already in there requiring fire doors. And then I did some research, and the first code requiring fire doors was the Uniform Building Code back in 1927. So that was like before I was born. And you know what? It was even before Martin was born. So it goes that far back. So I can safely say, since I've been doing inspections, since the 80s, that was already the code. So if somebody says, well, this is something new because of the Marco Polo fire. No, it's not. It's been in the code books for many, many years. And the Uniform Building Code got changed out. And it's now called the International Building Code, IBC. And there's other codes that require fire doors, such as the National Fire Protection Fire Code and Life Safety Code. There's other codes that require fire doors. And just to let you guys know that a fire door in a residential structure has to be solid core. It has to be rated as a fire door. It cannot have any louvers in it or windows unless it's fire glass. And it has to have a self-closing mechanism. In other words, when you open the door, it has to close and latch by itself. It cannot be left open or propped open for ventilation or anything like that. That's like a problem, because if there's a fire and it's in the unit when the door's open, guess what? It's just going to spread out into the hallways. Okay. Or if there was a fire across the hallway in that unit and your unit door was left open for ventilation, now, your unit is burning down too. Okay. So there's a reason for the fire code. And the reason for the fire code is the fire code is actually a set of codes to maintain safety standards to prevent fires. That's the simplest format. You want to prevent fires? Okay. How are we going to prevent fires? Well, let's make a set of rules that people have to comply with, and then they'll be safer, such as fire doors, such as smoke alarm system, fire sprinklers, those kind of things. So, I mean, to be safe, you got to comply with these regulations.
Okay,
So-
Lance, thank you. Can I just do a spin-off on this, or what you just mentioned about the fire doors in residential?
Yeah.
So when you say residential, does that include my own home? Because I know I have a heavy door in the back that has the automatic close, it kind of automatically closes. Is that a fire door? Is that what you're saying? That I need?
Well, that's a fire exit door, and it's supposed to be solid core. But I've seen your house. You live in a huge mansion. Come on. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm talking about a fire door in a single family house. The door between your house to your garage. Okay, that's the fire door.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
you have an enclosed garage. Okay, so that fire door has to be the same as I mentioned before. It has to be solid core, self-closing mechanism, can't have any louvers in it, can't have a window, a pet door, anything like that. Now that only applies to an enclosed garage. Okay, if you have a carport and it's open, then that's not considered a fire door. But there's still a fire door requirement at a single family house. In answer to your question.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
See, we get one more question I see here so far, and let me ask that before we run out of time for you. The question is, our insurance inspector told me that our building is not as safe as other buildings because it has units on either side of an enclosed hallway. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. And here's my explanation. There's a difference in a design of a building. Okay, there's a single load corridor, which has a walkway and units, and that's all. Okay, that's called a single load corridor. A double load corridor, it has a hallway in between and units on either side. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, why is the double loaded corridor not as safe? It's because you have units on both sides of the hallway. For example, Marco Polo was designed and had a double loaded corridor, meaning they had a main hallway in the middle and units on either side of the hallway. Okay, so when there's a fire, it's gonna spread across the hallway into the other units, and basically that's what happened. And the Lele Pono fire, Lele Pono didn't have double loaded corridor. They had single. They had a walkway which was facing the mountain, and the units were facing the ocean. And it was only a single walkway. They didn't have units on either side. So the Lele Pono building was safer as far as a design. But you know, all buildings are not safe if you don't have fire sprinklers, right? So you would want to get to the point where you have the maximum safety. So in answer to the your question, yeah, the insurance guy was correct as far as design, but of course you have case by case scenarios. So even if you have a single loaded corridor like Lele Pono, but you know they may be barbecuing in their lanai, or you know making manufacturing ice in their unit, and these are drugs. Of course, that's not going to be safe, right? So could cause an explosion and all that. So for the most part, a regular fire, the double loaded corridor is not the best design versus a single. So we got any other last minute questions or comments that came up?
No other questions here, but I'll give you my closing takeaway.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, it's the same as IT. Test, test, and test. Yeah, you got to test all your, your home equipment, because actually in preparation for this, because I knew we were going to do this fire safety thing, it made me think, oh, I better check all my my alarms, right? I better test my alarms. And then I tested I had to look at the fire extinguishers. And you know what, the one thing that I hadn't done it helped me remember, is since we've done all the renovations in our place, I hadn't rethought our escape plan. So that's something that Gene and I took a look at, is, so what's our escape plan now that, we don't have the lanais and the windows are all how we changed them. So that was the other thing, testing your escape plan if you do have a fire.
I'm
So
glad
that's-
yeah, good. Thank you. I'm glad you brought it up, because there was one instance that I found out. There was a single family fire, and it was a family, and they escaped, and they couldn't find the little girl. They thought the girl was still in the house, trapped in the fire,
Right.
because they didn't have a plan. The girl didn't know what to do. Later on, they found the girl across the street at the neighbor's house. She got scared and ran over, because she used to go to the neighbor's house to play with her friend.
Right.
So the bottom line was the girl was safe, but I think the mother admitted on the news that they didn't have a plan, and the plan was supposed to be, in case of a fire, everybody evacuate, and we're going to all meet at the mailbox of our house, or the
Right.
driveway of your neighbor's house, or wherever it is. So
Whatever
there
the
has to
plan
be
is.
a plan. And then, by the way, in concert with that, if you live in a high-rise building, apartment building or condo building, you got to have a safety plan. If you don't have a safety plan, where do people go? How do they know, like, if there's a fire, well, where are they going to go? Don't expect them to automatically know. They cannot use the elevator. They have to go down the stairs. And where do they go after? There was a situation where there's a high-rise fire, and people were like wandering around in the parking lot and all that, going, whoa, I don't know, where are we supposed to go?
Right.
And what happens when there's an all clear? How do we know when we're supposed to go back and the building's safe? They're all like in a quandary. So a good fire safety plan will have all that. And if you don't have a plan, call up the fire department. They'll be happy to send somebody out to your building to inspect your building and help you draft such a plan. I have information on my website that I'm going to put on regarding high-rise fire safety plan and all that. I haven't done that yet. So when I do, I'll be sure to let you guys know. But on behalf of Martin and myself, and ask the expert series. We thank you for attending. We hope you attend the next one. Go to our website, go get the free books because you don't want to pay $14.95 on Amazon, right? So because I'm Chinese, I like other people to save money too. So Happy New Year, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Aloha. Oh, before I forget, there's a expo in Hawaii at the Blaisdell, March 8th and 9th. And I'll be conducting a live seminar on Wednesday, March 8th. And the topic is how safe is your building? And that's going to be live, and it's going to be fun because all this time with the pandemic, I've been giving Zoom, and I've been antsy to do an actual live seminar. And then the other takeaway is for every attendee that comes, they're going to get a free How Safe Is Your Building book. So you don't have to pay the $14.95. I'll give it to you free if you show up, but only if you show up. Okay, so one book per person. Martin already said he wanted 5 books, and I said, no, it's 1 per person. Are you 5 people? You may eat like 5 people, but anyway, only joking. So we'll sign off. I know it's past the hour, but we had a lot of fun. We'll see you guys at the next webinar. Aloha.
Aloha.